Coming at you once again. Naked straight dick in the kitchen with Frank. Ooh, isn't that exciting? Guys, make sure you check me out on www.buymeacoffee.com /Frank Monday for all the behind the scenes titillating and stimulating documents and pictures around the house and stuff like that. And to keep up with the 100-day magical challenge, that'll give you some of the background and insight into that. I'm writing a document right now that I'm working on. Actually, I already worked on it once and I got to work on it again. But it is something I've been working on. So, like when I was listening to Professor Hamamoto, he's got a theory called the New World Order, the theory of the New World Order, or New World Order theory, and he's talking about how the New World Order is extremely anti-human, and he identifies who their leaders are, where it kind of came about in modern times. It's an intentional assault on the human sphere, really. It's an attack on community. If you've seen anything over the last couple of years about what's been going on, I'm sure you can see that it has been an intentional attack on humanity and community. That's the main thing. It's a very anti-human agenda. And so figureheads in this movement, AOC, Schwab, Gates, Flaky, so on and so on, ad nauseum. He talks about the connections and makes the connects the dots with those guys. I realized that to talk about that thing with any kind of authority, you got to be a guy like Professor Hamamoto, who's dedicated the last 20 or 30 years to studying it and reading all of the books in the field, because he has an encyclopedic memory about what these people are up to. And so I'm going to leave that to him. That's not my angle. My thing is, how does this connect to us? What can we do to avoid creating, to acquiescing, to fight back a little bit of civil disobedience, so that you're just not voluntarily complying with everything that's coming down the pike? Because it's constant DNA tracking, it's constant inhibitions on our civil liberties, it's destruction of the Bill of Rights, so on and so forth. You guys know it ad nauseum. I'm not going to review all that shit. So, what I asked myself this question, I jumped up this morning and I asked myself the question, right, how do we fight back? That's a great question. And so, um, check out Professor Hamamoto. Make sure that you tell him Frank Monday sent you if you do that. Tippy Hedron Collider, good to see you out in Happy Land. Recognition to you out there in the ideas room. Thank you for joining me on this impromptu live transmission from Twilight Zone, Old Peking, Central Kingdom of the Celestial Dragon. Yeah, do you know Professor Hamamoto? He's awesome, man. I just started listening to him. I just found him like 2 days ago, and yesterday, I think. And I've already listened to like 10 videos. And I'm like, man, this guy is spot on. And he doesn't recant all the other horseshit that's already been out there in the community. And he's bringing new and interesting, titillating angles to the whole thing, which is great. And so I asked myself the question, because he presents his ideas a little bit, a little bit of megalomania, a little bit egotistical, right? Some may accuse him of, the nitpickers will in fact accuse him of such a thing, but I don't find him that way at all. I find him interesting and fun to listen to. And so the question I was pondering this morning about myself, make sure I check the ideas room. Got a friend out there in Happy Land. Good to see you, Tippy TP Hadron Collider. So what's unique to Frank Monday? What angle can I bring? How can I help generate a positive message of civil disobedience that people can sink their teeth into? And so, for simplicity's sake, you may know, if you've been listening to me for any length of time, that I've adopted a scheme from Taoism, in fact, from Chinese Taoism, that I call the theory of thirds. And maybe it's just something I'm discovering that's within the tenets of Taoism, but I have my own unique angle on it. So it's based on a very simple, basic principle in Taoism, and it's an elegant integration of heaven and earth, and we see it in the Star of David, not the Star of Solomon. That's his Star of David, Solomon's father, right? So Solomon's star is the five-pointed star, right? The pentagram, banishing of the pentagram. And so the Star of David, it represents the energy of heaven descending as one triangle, the supernal triad, and then an earth energy ascending from below. So it's an elegant integration of the energies of heaven and earth, which create humankind in the middle. And this new attack against us is obviously satanic. It's demonic. It's Luciferian. It's, I mean, any kind of negative group of entities, the dark celestials, the bad guys, the Bill Gates out there, the flakies, all of these, those who seek dominance over other humans, they are evil by definition, right? Heaven and earth, heaven descends from above. It's all potential, it's future energy, it's emptiness, it's all potential, it's spirit and formless, right? The energy of heaven. The energy of earth rises from below. It's a solid manifestation, it's matter and form. So gross and subtle energies are distinctly divided, is what's written in the Tao. Intercourse is the operation of creation, the intercoursing of these two energies, representative of the Star of David. It's the bringing together of the heavenly energy from above, the spirit integrating with the physical, gross matter rising up from below, and that creates the way, humankind. There is a way. There is a way to overcome this. There is a way to fight back, right? There is a way. And if one is quiet and receptive, they'll be filled with the Holy Spirit and receive guidance from the spirit realm. It becomes apparent. It becomes clear right before the mind's eye, as clear as the sun and the moon. And so, what is it? So, I got to check on this food, man. Every time, it doesn't matter. The the transmission is sacred and needs to be dealt with in a timely and patient fashion. And every time I get excited and I do a little writing and I want to bring my message forward and do a live stream, the minions of the dark ones always rise up. And I don't mean that in any pessimistic way, but like my wife will come home immediately. Like she just stepped out to do something. I feel like, okay, I'm ready, do a live stream, got a little free time, kids are sleeping or whatever. And then bam, they're up and then everything's running around. And then like the mundane tasks that are required of me, this thing right here, cooking and cleaning, organizing, always descend upon me. And that's just the way it is. I got to integrate all of that. I got to juggle those tasks. So there's no way around that. That's a part of my selfless service to my family and to the community. And it can't be avoided. So please bear with me as I juggle cooking some breakfast for my kids and at the same time making a worthwhile transmission. So, what's unique to me, Frank Monday? The theory of thirds is one thing, how I divide things up into three areas, the three Dantians, the Dantian, the celestial Dantian at the top, the descending energy of heaven, commingling with the rising energy of earth. So, imagine a triangle at the top pointed down, and then a triangle at the navel pointed up, and then the Star of David dead center as those two energies intercourse. So I brought forward an idea that I identified what I call the three great deceptions in the world. So the minions of the demonic entities and minions of the devil are working hard to block us from realization of the truth. What is enlightenment but a struggle towards realization? And it's the method that brings it about. It's not so much about arriving at the destination as it is in enjoying the journey. Right. So the method is the way. And as a boy, now let me tell you a little bit about my background so you can understand where I'm coming from. I was raised in a Christian home. Well, my dad was a businessman, my mother was a homemaker, but I was raised. First few years of my life, I went to uh, Christian academies for my first few years of development, primary school, elementary school. So uh, the school I attended was a Lutheran academy for boys, and there were girls there as well, but it was a Lutheran, so raised in a Lutheran environment. And so, like, our version of the Boy Scouts was called the Royal Rangers, right? And so we were Boy Scouts for God, essentially. And the one thing I always loved about the Boy Scouts and scouting activities is that there were clearly defined methods for the realization of spirit in your life, like and getting out into nature and communing directly with God. Like one of these things, one of the practices that we had after a camp session, or like prior to and after making camp, was doing a prayer. Now, I always did it a lot of times individually. So, um, and that was encouraged, was communing with spirit in a natural environment. So very ritualistic, very type of ceremonial magic. I'd show up and I do the lesser banishing of the pentagram, right, and commune with spirit prior to making camp, and then try to subtly detect like where's the best place to put my tent, the feng shui of the area, this type of thing, and giving thanks and asking for protection and guidance, right? So I've been doing these same like Lord's Prayer and stuff since I was a little boy. But one of the great disappointments I had is that there were no direct methods for cultivating magic. And I was like, why is magic? This is actually uh, prior to me finding out what magic actually is and connecting with it. And there were all these allusions to, like, of course, sorcery and witchcraft and this type of thing being evil, and that sorcerers would be punished and thrown into the pits of hell, and the fires and stuff like that. And then but at the same time there was this Old Testament message of Moses being a great wizard and Solomon being the most powerful wizard king, and these guys humbling themselves before God and doing great magic. And I thought, well, wait a minute, when did it get removed? When did it be? Was it the sacrifice of Christ and the crucifixion, which now dictates to us that angelic magic is not permitted? And I found out that that's not true. That it was removed by the Catholic Church because the priests wanted to have a monopoly on interaction with spirit, and so they're the ones who vilified the pagan systems and the alternate systems of worship, and they vilified it to such a level that they made everybody become like in a situation of anxiety, and so rule through fear, right? And we get things like the Satanic Panic and basically like domination of people. It's mind control. So learning magic and learning the interaction, the integration of centering with the Godhead and pulling down from the Ein Sof and enlightening through qigong and practice, and the ceremonial implementation of the sacred symbology and stuff, that was all ripped away from the people and put into the hands of the priest class. But through the Hermetic Brotherhood of Luxor and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, I've rediscovered these ancient secrets that magic is good. And for those among us who would rise to the highest levels of communion with the Holy Spirit, then magic is essential. And it's done openly in the sight of God and his angels, and it's done to drive away devils, right? Apollonius of Tyana is second only to Jesus Christ in being able to cast out demonic spirits from people. So removal of demonic possession is a very high level of magic. And Jesus was a big magician. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that was his forte. That's what he engaged in. He said, "I and my Father am one. The kingdom of heaven is within you. If you, like me, commune with spirit directly, then you too can do these works and greater." And so, connecting with the Christ consciousness and being empowered by the secret name of God and interacting with God directly and his angels, then that's the way to get it done, man. And evil will tempt you and try to divert you away from the truth through even things like the church. So you got to be wary of that. Some of the best communion you'll ever have is in the quiet time when you're out in nature or even within your temple, and there's no interference, there's no static, there's nobody running interference on you and your journey with the Spirit of the Lord. And so when I was asking myself this question this morning, Frank Monday, what is your unique talent that you can offer to the community by way of your understanding and from your tradition and history? And I thought, that's it, man. It's my method of cultivation might not be appropriate for everyone, but the message that I've been able to bring to bear through things like the Orbital of Magic, right, which is a very distinctly Christian, esoteric Christianity. It's a very distinctly Christian approach to magic, right? Um, Written right after the time of John Dee and prior to, at the time of and prior to uh, Henry Cornelius Agrippa's four books of occult philosophy, and included in them is the Arbitel of Magic. And so bringing forward my unique Arbitel is going to be my magnum opus, my pièce de résistance. It will be my contribution to the community. And I've been working on it for a long time now. And so what is it? Like, give me just a second, guys. Stand by. I'm making wonton soup for my kids. So stand by. Wow, it's got little shrimps in the soup package. So these are handmade wontons from a shop downstairs, and it's got seaweed. And I see seaweed bits and onion and little shrimp. I had a Chinese chef friend when I was young, and he was a very lusty and sexy dude, bit of a little fat round guy. Everybody called him Happy Face because he smiled all the time. But he was a really good chef, and he told the owner of the restaurant one time. He said that without me, your restaurant would not be as prosperous. He said because I put happiness into the food. But he was a little bit of a pervert too, and he once told me, he said, "Little fish good, big fish no good," and he was being extremely what's the word? A little bit lusty about it and a little bit lascivious, and I knew that he was making an innuendo to his penis size. And I was like, bro, I mean, it took me a while because my Chinese was not good at the time. I was like pretty young, and he kept saying it over and over again. He wanted me to teach him English. He didn't speak any English. And so I taught him those words. He's like, how do you say fish, right? And I'm like, in Chinese, it's yu zhen. And I would say, okay, I don't know. Let's look it up in the dictionary. And I'm like, fish. And he's like, okay, okay. How do you say big? And I'm like, okay, or, da zhen. And I'm like, big. And then he went on to encourage, he was able to construct this single sentence that he was very proud of. And so he was making wonton soup like this that has the little shrimp in it. And I think it had little dried fish in it. And he kept saying that over and over again and like smiling at me and poking me and shit. And, being very, very flirtatious. And he's like, hey, watch it, bro. Amber, here's your bowl of soup. This is your breakfast. You're not going to get anything else. No. Okay. Yes, that's absolutely the truth. Because I'm not going to just lay my lay myself down in constant servitude to all of your desires, Amber. You're going to eat what you're given. No. And mommy agrees with me. And you didn't water your little plants, so you didn't get any action over there. Nothing's growing. You better behave yourself, bro. I'm watching you. And so to finish up that story, he once he figured that sentence out, that was like the joy of his English was little fish good, big fish no good. Big fish too big, little fish so small. And uh, I don't know what it is, but for some reason my personality and just something about me will set off gaydar like a homing beacon. And so dudes that are interested in that kind of thing, which it goes against natural law, and in Taoism it's frowned upon. And I'm just going to tell you straight up that I follow the tenets of Tao very good, but it can be playful, but it can also be bad. And so that's my piece. I'm sticking it there. There's only two distinct genders in natural law according to Taoism, and it's man and woman, and they're only meant to hook up that way. They have very specific understanding of the phenomena of homosexuality or lesbianism, right? Homosexuality in any form, whether it be a lesbian or a gay. Um, and it's basically, for the most part, it's discouraged. It can be tolerated. And I'm going out on a limb here to say that, but in general practice, it's not meant to be promoted or even highlighted. And so that's the way we run things over here in the Central Kingdom of the Celestial Dragon. Now, it does happen, and it is a phenomenon. It must be recognized. But for me personally, I follow the straight and narrow, the middle path. I integrate my feminine and masculine spirits within me. I'm a heterosexual married man, raising children. You can just call me dad. Right? I am a patra familia, leader of the family. Yeah, so back to the where did I leave off? I got distracted. Um, Funny, I was watching Wrangler Star this morning. He did a 2.5 hour live stream. I don't know if you guys ever watch Cody over at Wrangler Star, but he is a live. He's been doing a channel for a long time, and now he's doing impromptu live streams. A couple of hours long, and he was talking about the hassle of putting videos together, like shooting everything and then editing it and having very little return on investment, even though I think he's got like 2 million subs. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Little return on investment. YouTube must really be strangling people if you've got a sub base of 2 million people and you get sponsorships and you still sell products. And then at the same time, you feel like it's more trouble than it's worth. And he's like, talking in front of the live stream and doing this, he said, it's almost not worth it. Like it's so hard to do sometimes. And he said, what was his exact wording? He said, the live streaming is one of the toughest jobs out there. Like getting everything ready and then doing it. And so it always strikes me as a little bit ludicrous when I hear that and I think, wow. And this is a guy with like I think 2.3 million subs that's making, that's his deal. That he's making a living. And I'm like, I live stream as much as he does, if not more. I don't put a lot of editing into videos, and it's not necessarily a content driven ideation, but yeah, ROI is what they call it, return on investment. You can't do everything based on that principle, though. If you do, then then you're living for the devil, and the devil's got you in his grips. So there's a bowl of wonton soup, piping hot, salty, and salt, savory, and because of the seaweed and the shrimps, it tastes like seafood, and it even smells like the sea. And I just got back from the sea. I went. Some of you may know, I went down to the coast here in China to pay homage to the Father Dagon and the Mother Hydra. I wanted to see if Cthulhu would wake up and say hello to me. So I was down in the port of Innsmouth for the last 2 weeks. It was great. It was great being out there and smelling the brine air, the salty air. I grew up near the ocean. I don't know if you guys know this, but I grew up in Los Angeles County in California. And so I was in the ocean water all the time, swimming at a young age and surfing. I like surfing, skimboarding, and boogie boarding, and all of it. Once you get on a surfboard, though, you never turn back. Once you become a surfer, you never really do any more skimboarding or knee boarding or boogie boarding. That shit's all for kids. Surfing is a man's sport. And so I was never a big wave rider, though, man. Big waves, I'd get out of the water. Um, but now living inland, landlocked, Beijing is surrounded on all sides by land and mountains. Um, I find that I miss the smell of the salt air and maybe going out on a boat for the day and doing some fishing and getting a lot of fresh seafood. That can be really healthy for you. Uh, yeah. I've heard it said that something like, what is it, like 80% of the world's population lives along the coast. So you can see that we really are a fish folk, a lot of us. People who dwell in the mountains and the plains, they are a different type of person. They develop more of they eat a lot of lamb or cattle, and they're a little bit slower moving, maybe deeper thinking. Whereas the fish folk are a little more quick witted, maybe. I don't know. There's a lot going on there. Hey, Thomas Sund is out there in Happy Land. Good to see you, Tomas. Long time no see. I'm back from the sea and on the shore once again here in Twilight Zone, Old Peking. And so it's day 19 of the Magical Challenge, man. I hope you've been doing well, cultivating the energy of the magic wand and keeping it in reserve for whatever you may wish for. I didn't. I didn't get a sword, um, but I got something better. I sealed a deal. I initiated a relationship with the owner of Conway Swords, and even more exciting because, um, yeah, good man. Me too, man. Day 19, got that energy building. So here's what happened. I went there and I had the sub intention of getting a sword, and the one I was after, they no longer are making. They haven't made it in a long time. He said it's a lot of trouble. But I the guy who set up the meeting is a sales rep, and he's the one I met here in Beijing when they had a sword show. They had a sword exhibition years ago, like over a decade ago. And so he set up the meeting and he said, hey, there's this foreign guy traveling, and he's lived in China for a long time, and he's loved the company for, the company's been around like 30 years. And this guy's been in control of it for about 15. So he's the owner of Conway Swords. And he's like, he'd like to meet with you and, just talk about swords and the history of the company and stuff. And so this guy sets this up. I go and I tour the factory and I meet all of the craftsmen, and I see the guys pounding away with their hammers and the forges and all of it. It's all in the throes of it. And here's the crazy thing too. Yeah. Here's the crazy thing. I had been doing path work on the Tree of Life. I don't know if you use the Hermetic Tree of Life, the Kabbalah, but there's distinct Kabbalahs. There's the Jewish Kabbalah, which is like from Judaism, which is quite complex, and you've got to study the Sefer Yetzirah to understand it. But then there's the Christian Kabbalah, the Christian Tree of Life, which is an adaptation and a simplification. And then there's the Hermetic Kabbalah, which is the one magicians use in their magic. So I study the Hermetic Kabbalah. Yeah, baby steps in magic. But I had been doing path working and looking through the tarot cards, and judgment kept passing up. Revelation, the 20th card, right? And so I sat down and I looked at the Tree of Life, and that's the path from Malkuth, from the material sphere, to the sphere of Hod, which is like the realm of Hephaestus, the great alchemist, Mercury, and the the mechanical manifestation of technology and stuff like that. And that had happened like the day of, the day before, and the morning of. Like that card popped up 3 times, and I went into pathworking, and I didn't even make the connection mentally. But here I am traveling out of my own plane and into a plane of the forge where they're making swords. And the realization only hit me when I got into the factory and I was around all of these furnaces and these guys hammering. They had a big contract where they're doing camping supplies like hand axes and bushcrafting knives and stuff. And so they have a very specific new product line called APOC, and it represents like the first part of apocalypse. So they're doing coffee, like storable coffee and hand axes and camping and bushcrafting supplies for an American supplier based around the theme of like Boy Scouting and stuff like that, but like, like preppers, like survival preparedness, So when the shit hits the fan, you'll make sure that you've got a handy axe and a bushcrafting knife and stuff like that. And so the realization that I was in the sphere of Hod, like I had got there physically and spiritually, and this revelation was coming to me through the practice of the 100-day magical challenge. And it's like I'm sitting here before the forge and altar of the great Hephaestus, so I go into his office, and he's got this giant hardwood office, all done in traditional Chinese decor, a giant desk, hey, hello, and he's back there and he's smoking a pipe. And yeah, we're all preppers these days. That's right. You got to keep a 6-month food supply on hand. And so he comes out there, and his son's running around, and he's a family guy, and I'm a family guy. And he was very kind and generous with me. And the first thing he does is he offers me a Cuban, and he's like, "Would you like a Cuban?" I'm like, "Of course I'd like a Cuban," And so I stick this big cigar in my mouth, and he makes me a coffee. And because early, it was the middle of the day. I think it was right before noon when I met with him the first time. Anyway, so I told you guys about that a little bit, so I won't recant all of that. But then we're walking around and we're looking at the showroom. He's got a showroom there with all of the products: European swords, medieval swords, French, Germany. Knows the history of all of them. He's talking about them. He's showing me some of the more uh, items that he's proud of that are secret, and are not distributed among the public. And they do like an entire like Nazi series of daggers for the Chinese military, like so top level secret stuff even. Like they've got like a Navy dagger, and it's all based on like the old SS daggers and stuff, and there's swastikas everywhere and stuff. And I'm like, you guys are hardcore, because that's Chinese culture. Obviously, it's presented in the Chinese flair. We've got here at the Forbidden City, we've got robes dating back 3,000 years that have the swastika on them in both directions. So that it's called a wanzi in Chinese, but it's a power symbol. It represents the Big Dipper and the North Star, and it's swirling energy through the 4 courses, the 4 seasons, the 4 Kabbalistic elements. And I'm like, this is all very high level magic. And so anyway, um, I start talking to him about my ideas, and he's talking to me about his ideas. And I'm like, wow, how could I be of assistance, or, do some intercourse with the sphere of Hod, the sphere of Mercury and Hephaestus. And so I said, I'll do whatever I can do, to promote your products. And so I started telling him about the international school that I work for. And he's like, yeah, you guys could do a Wushu program. We have Wushu competitions, like Kung Fu fighting. You guys could do, and I started telling him about the Boy Scouts. And I'm like, all of the products you're working on right now would integrate perfectly into like a Boy Scout themed program for either my school or fuck every school in China. I said, if we can do it successfully at the private level, it's probably just among the private schools. But if we could do it successfully at the private level, it may be something that we can, um, get the ball rolling and do programs nationwide for competitions in bushcraft and integrating really what is the Chinese idea of the scholar warrior.
Mm.
I'm live streaming. Do you need something?
Listen to me first. You're going to put some ice cream.
Yeah, it's not going to happen right now. I've got ice cream in the freezer. So you just want to go down and cause trouble. Why don't you and Dre work on cleaning up the bed? Make your bed.
Wait a minute.
I'll think about it. I picked up one of these in an ancient town between here and Dalian. It's a bagua. It's the octahedron, right? That represents the great engine that generates our material sphere. On the back is a talisman for the thunder god, like Thor. They call him Rayshun. He's a little different. It's got a brass gourd. And the gourd has a little bit of a secret. You can open it up, and it's got a place for snuff or cocaine or whatever you like. It's a little storage facility. You could probably put hash in there or whatever other mystic medicine you like. Then it's got a series of coins on it. There are, I believe, 6. Yeah, because Liu, 6 means like good energy in Chinese. And then I just noticed this too. It's blue on one side, representing the element of water, right? And then red on the other. So fire and water, the commingling of fire and water. Yeah, so I had a long, lovely trip into the sphere of Hod. And that's the other thing too, magic, and you're working with the tree of life and the major arcana and stuff. It's just so unerringly accurate, right? Like you're doing path work to get into the sphere of Hod. The next thing you know, you're at the workshop of one of the greatest sword makers in China. He said that they're number 2 in China, only to Longchan. So Longchan is number 1. It's the biggest sword maker in China. And Conway, they're number 2 to Longchan. He said nobody could beat Longchan because Longchan has so many factories and it has such an ancient, long tradition. But there are unique, special things to Hanwei that Longchan does not have. Number 1, they were the sword maker for the emperor, the northern emperor. There's always been a southern emperor as well. But true Chinese internal martial arts, there are 3 that are recognized internationally. They're Xingyi, Bagua, and Taiji. So everybody knows Taiji Chuan, right? Or they've heard of it. But not many people know the development of those systems. And there's a very unique one called Baji Chuan that is based on the Bagua and the integration of Xingyi and Bagua. And so that's what's unique to the Dalian area. Dalian is also known as China's secret city because it's a very secretive place. They have a lot of military installations there, but it's the home of like the fighting 80 or the 82nd or 86th. It's like one of their main military forces has always been centered there. And they have a long history of melee weapons, like metallurgic weapons, spearheads, swords, armor, this kind of thing. Anyway, so being a romantic lover of Chinese Taoism, that's always been one of my goals, was to go there. And I just wanted to go to their showroom and look around, but I actually, made a deep connection with the owner of the company, and he wants to utilize me as a showman in promoting a product line, which, I basically developed a relationship with the guy, and not overnight either. He took me out one day and he took me to a secret place that foreigners can't even go. And the only reason, I was able to go is because I was one dude in a caravan of cars, full on like presidential style caravan. And I'm in the van in the back seat. And he's like, just don't worry about it. As soon as they see him, the gates open up and we just go right in. And so then we went to the top of the mountain, and it was the death place of Nogi Hoten, like during World War II, they defeated this strategic Japanese general on this hill, and they have an entire shrine to him and stuff. And so, like, it was a big deal. Like, there was a one of the greatest battles during World War II between the Japanese and the Chinese took place on this hill, and it's not open to tourists. And so I got the first class treatment. And he took me in there, and I was like, man, are these guys going to sacrifice me on the mountain? And then I met with another big shot guy, an official, and he's developing an entire retreat area filled with suhayars, like traditional Chinese complexes, gated areas, and they're like they basically seized this entire Japanese community that was built during World War II, and all of the old architecture still there. They say it was the Japanese, but it's Greco-Roman. It's all Tartarian, and I'm like, this is old Tartaria. And I say, yeah, some of it was built by the Russians, some of it was built by the Japanese. And I'm looking around at these buildings with like megalithic stones. I wasn't able to film any of it. They told me to keep my phone in my pocket. They're like, no pictures, no camera work. But I met with this guy, and he individually took me and the other guys, and he wanted me right by his side the whole time, and took me around and showed me like all of it. And he's like picking up stones, and he's like, look at this, look at the antiquity of this thing. And he showed me through all the buildings, showed me the woodwork, explained it to me, and so quite revealing. I don't think any of those things would have happened if I hadn't been doing my magic. If we weren't fully engaged in the 100-day magical challenge, I don't think the fruition of that would have been so beautiful and like the blossoming of a flower that's been trying to grow for 20 years. It's one of the things about magic is it works. It works, and that's a fact. I'm living proof. And as a natural magician, that's been doing magic from a very young age, um, that's it's not limited to people that are natural magicians, though. Anyone can practice. Just humble yourself before the Lord. So what did I want to say? Yeah, hi to everyone out in Happy Land. Look, Thomas is out there, Tippy Hedron Collider. You guys must be keeping late hours because I feel like this is one of the bad times to stream. But Tomas, it seems like you're still down in Southeast Asia, so you may be around the same time of day as me. Simon 1532 is out there in Happy Land. Good to see you, man. Good to see everybody out there in the ideas room. It's on day 19. So I started anyway. Everybody may have started at a little bit of a different time, but I started on the first day of the new moon, the seventh lunar month in the Chinese calendar. And so that was on July 29th. No, July 30. Let me see. Let me check it. Hold on just a second, guys. That was on July 29th. Yeah. So the 29th was my first day of the 100-day magical challenge. And today is in Beijing. It's Tuesday, the 16th of August, which is the 19th day of the seventh lunar month. So I'm on day 19. We are in the third decan of Leo, which is represented in the tarot by the Seven of Wands and is called the Lord of Valor. It's ruled by Mars. So, and we're also in an Aries moon. It transitions into Taurus later today, but right now we're in an Aries moon, and we're a few days out from the full moon. So we're in the third quarter. So let me bring you guys up to speed on what that means. Your birthday today. Wow, happy birthday, TP Hadron Collider. I would sing you the birthday song, but I'm always worried that YouTube is going to steal my original content. It's your birthday, baby. Don't be blue. Birthday, baby. You hoo hoo. Act like a monkey and show your ass. Let 'em know you ain't got no class on your birthday, baby. Do do do. Birthday, baby. I love you. Anyway, I won't sing you the second and third verse because you know how YouTube has a tendency to steal. Yes, so happy birthday, TP Hadron Collider. The OG original Frank Monday birthday song. is something I don't want to necessarily wind up on TikTok and me not get any fucking credit for. Uh, so Professor Hamamoto was talking about how like book producers and platforms like YouTube, they're always filtering your message and holding it back because they want to see what's coming down the pike, and they like to keep a close eye on creative types and to keep them underrepresented so that they can steal from them. So they want you to get your best ideas on their outline for free and then steal it from you, you know. And he says they do that in all areas. They do it in the scientific fields, they do it in the creative fields, in the humanities and literature. They do it everywhere. He said, like book producers in particular will they'll ask you to submit your manuscripts, and then they'll just take the ideas they want out of your manuscript and then refuse to publish your book for you. And so he said it's important that you always hold something back. He said don't just put it all out there for free, and don't necessarily be motivated necessarily by the drive to profit from it either. Just do it because it's the great work. You know, he didn't say it in those words. I'm obviously interpolating um, what he said. Well, let's see here. Yes, we're the third quarter of the moon. It is Tuesday, August 16th. We're on the 19th day of magic for the 100-day magical challenge, which means we're 1/5 of the way through, man. And see how fast it goes by and how quickly things come into manifestation when you're doing good magic, right? Like I'm a living example. My uh, Aladdin's lamp magical wish list. I've had to review it already 3 or 4 times because things are just bam, bam. They're just appearing as I write them down. You know, make magic happen. We are in Aries. It's an Aries moon. So let's find out about that. The moon phases, we've got the waning gibbous moon. As Miss Mary Moon would confirm, it is a disseminating moon. It starts the journey from full back to new. It's the sixth phase in the lunar month, with the moon rising after sunset and setting after sunrise. Its energy brings a bit of reserve, but it's still a good time to share knowledge and what is being learned. Yeah, so I'm learning definitely, and I want to share that knowledge with you. This is a perfect time for dissemination. Like one of my, I could tell you about my magical wishes after they become true. One of them was pathworking into the sphere of Hod and getting a sword from Hephaestus himself, you know, the great metallurge here in China. And he gave me 4 swords, in fact. He was no longer producing the one I wanted, but he just gave me, like he had the sales rep walked out and he had 4 swords and he just gave them to me. In addition to that, like this, I told you guys about the Cuban cigar, but I didn't want to tell you guys about everything because I don't want to feel like it's arrogant and stuff like that. But I like to try to maintain some humility. But yeah, magic works, man. So yeah, he walks out and he's got 4 swords and he sets them in my lap. He's like, take these, as product representations, as showpieces for the future. And like I said, the greatest thing was the human connection between me and him. And so I went that one day and I spent the entire day at the factory and in his showroom, basically, puffing on cigars and drinking good coffee. But then he said, the next day he invited me out, and we went to that like the battle place I was telling you about, that secret battle place in the defeat of the World War II Japanese general here in China, Hogi Hatten or Noji Hatten. That was his name. I can't find him online, but maybe there's something wrong with the spelling in because it's been anglicized, obviously, right? The original characters are in Chinese and Japanese. Um, and then the next day we chilled and we did our own thing. But then he called back again and he's like, "Let's go out again." It was on a Friday night. It was the last night of our stay in Dalian, and he said, "Let's go to dinner." And he invited me to a Western restaurant where they had pool tables and foosball, and they made pizza and barbecue. And he said, this is one of his favorite places. He's basically like, "This is my cafeteria." They also make Chinese food, but I ended up drinking beer with him and the boys. He brought along one of the main designers, and we talked about stuff. We talked about business, and we talked about family. But here I am sitting down with one of the big shots of the city of Dalian, in one of his favorite restaurants, and we're drinking craft beer and smoking cigars, and our kids are running around playing, and it's just really the culmination of that magical energy. And I was tempted to let loose with a grand finale there at the end of the night with my better half, but I refrained. And that's what the magical challenge is all about. It's that when those culminations happen and you're at the top of the wave and you're just shooting down the face of the wave and you're like, oh, I'm coming. Don't do it. Don't drink to elation and do not eat to fullness. Do not fill to the brim and do not overstep. And so I was very wary at that time. I became like a traveler in a foreign land. I'm a guest in a foreign land. And Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching says that you should treat those situations like you're walking on thin ice. And you should be even more careful and even more humble in those situations of valor. And so I did that. I refrained and I held the magic back. And you got to keep building the impetus and sublimating that primeval desire to manifest so much in the material sphere. And I thought, okay, I'm backing off. And what that means for me is, like, on a personal level, is that it mitigates my level of obligation to, and at the same time, it shows a level of responsibility and willingness to take on the burdens of the community. Like I said, I will do these things because he's talking about money and payout percentages and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I'm not here for that, bro. I'm here for the love of the thing. I'm here to get the work done. And I want to do the work and do what I can when I can because the work needs to be done, not because I need to get paid for it, not because I need recognition for it. And so I really displayed that great spirit of Tao. And I've learned something among, like, big shot Chinese is they value that humility, and the reward will be even greater than what you asked for, because you need to remember that all things are given by God. And if God hasn't given to you, you're not going to get it. And all of your struggling and suffering, and that's just a trial of the spirit. And unless it's going to be presented to you, unless it arises from within yourself, if it isn't within you, then it won't be outside of you either. And so I've known that from day one. Like, one of his colleagues asked me, he's like, how could you leave America? And isn't America so much better than here? And I'm like, bro, this is something, it's one of the things I've always responded with. I said, no matter where you go, there you are. And your work is your work. And it follows you. I said, you cannot escape your fate. You cannot escape fortune. You should definitely listen to the spirit and where it guides you. And Sun Qi Ziran, as we say in Chinese Tao, follow the natural order. But you cannot resist the pool of spirit. And wherever your magic is going to take you, that's where it's going to take you. And you'll never regret the things you did, but you'll often regret the things you did not do. So when that great spirit, creative spirit and spark of the divine rises within you and pulls you in any given direction, you should go. You should humble yourself before the spirit and take on the work, not with the thought of the reward at the end, and not with the thought of payment, and the stinginess of demanding something in return, but with the spirit of, is like, is this something I want to do? Is this something I brought to myself through my own wishing, through my own praying, through my own interaction with the spirit, with God, with humbling myself before the throne? And if so, then why should I be looking for a reward in doing it? I should just be doing it because it's what I wanted to do. And that's one of the great battles I've always had with my wife, because she's like, well, then, you got to provide for the family. You got to make a paycheck. It's all fine and dandy. But she's like, you got to talk numbers up front. I'm like, well, if that's what you want to do, if you feel drawn to do that, then do that. And so, she I said, don't make yourself petty, still be generous with the community. And so in the Tao, we say that you should be generous with the community while being frugal with yourself. And so, really being a magician or a wizard and studying the path of magic, angelic magic, done openly before God, and communion with the angels and the angelic forces is all about that, is that you still need to fulfill your secular life. You still got to do your job. You still have to, participate in family life. You cannot isolate yourself from the community. And that was the great message within the Orbital of Magic, the Arbatim, the manifestation of the fourfold name of God, the Tetragrammaton, as we say. Um, yeah, Russian lad, how's it going out there in Happy Land, man? I hope you are doing well. We're getting here towards the bottom of the hour, man, so I'm about to wrap things up. But let me check. Let me check the ideas room and see if people are still out there. It looks like we got a couple of folks out in Happy Land. Simon 1532, good to see you, sir. Hope you're doing well. We're on day 19 of the 100-day magical challenge. I hope magic is manifesting itself for you in a good, positive way. Give give thanks to the Lord, um, and the manifestation of His son and His son's wife, and the solo moon, sun and moon. Simon 15, Tippy Hadron Collider, you're out there. Good to see you. Happy birthday to you. Today is TP's birthday, so happy birthday to TP. That's so funny. Good to see you, Simon. I hope, yes. Russian lad, good to see you. Planning on going to a vacation. Yeah, vacations are great, man. Take a vacay when you need one. If your job, allows it, then definitely take time off and just sojourn in the mountains or the seaside or whatever you like. Tomas, I don't think you've ever had time, Thomas, to participate in a live stream. So this is a rare treat. Good to see you, sir. I was trying to tell the tales of my wanderings um, in the port of Innsmouth, where I met with, I did my path working along the 31st, not the 31st, the 30th path of the Tree of Life, the major arcana of judgment or the great revelation, right? So I traveled up Revelations into the sphere of Hod, which is the eighth sphere on the Tree of Life. It represents the planetary system of the wandering star system of Mercury, the fastest traveling, so communications. And it's also the place of Hephaestus, the god of fire, his workshop, the metallurgic center, and it represents the manifestation of technology into our realm. It's the workshop where things get assembled and hammered into shape and put together. And so I had traveled into the sphere of Hod, and it coincided with my traveling to a genuine sword manufacturer's and his factory. I can't see what you guys are talking about. But anyway, yeah, so he gave me a great gift of like a couple of boxes of a new product of coffee that they're exporting out of Ethiopia and making into APOC, a company called APOC Apocalypse. And they're making hatchets, like bushcraft hatchets and bushcraft knives. And they're still doing all of their sword work. They still make katanas and traditional Chinese wushu blades and stuff. Like I said, it's the number two sword manufacturer in China. They did work on the Lord of the Rings. They did work on various top Hollywood movies where they did some of the manufacturing for the swords used there. But yeah, they did the swords for the Lord of the Rings. Some of the elven swords. I don't know if they did all of them, but I think they did a good deal of the weapons that you see on those big Hollywood pictures. But I was finishing off with the Friday night, our last day in Dalian, and he had invited us all out to dinner, and we're commiserating and drinking, and we are drinking craft beer, big, like a liter of craft beer at a time. And I noticed the owner, the boss, he went through like two pretty fast, and I started a little bit slow. I drank one, and then over the course of the night, we ended up drinking five each. But I paced myself a little bit more, and I drank. I about midway, I sped up a little bit and caught up with the boss, and then one of the main head designers, he was trying to keep up. He didn't want to be left behind. And so we all ended up drinking five. But towards the end of the night, I was the only one that finished my 5th liter of beer, and I was still perfectly clear. Like I didn't even have a buzz. Whereas like the other guys, they were like I could see it. Their eyes were red, and they were like, wow, wow. They were swirling, and I was like, woohoo! I'm still peppy, man. We're just getting started. Let's do another five. But no, we retired for the evening. We all went our different ways and made plans for future endeavors. Um, I was thinking of getting a medieval sword when I was obsessed with that part of history, probably for the best that I grew out of that. Yeah, his I wish, I mean, you can just jump online and look at a YouTube video. There's a guy who toured his factory a few years back and shot everything in good HD quality. So the factory is called Hanwei, Hanwei, Hanwei Swords. In the United States, they're represented by a company called CAS, CAS. So Hanwei is the company here in Dalian that makes the swords for CAS. But you could check, just do a YouTube search on Hanwei, and then there's like a guy put an HD quality video together with no talking at all. It's just like 30 minutes of touring the factories and like looking at all of the swords and stuff, and it's set to music. And so I thought it's got a watermark on it. And so I thought, do I really need to try and shoot all of this myself? And it would have been more fun to see me doing it, but I thought it's a little bit intrusive, and like live streaming and doing shorts and stuff like that. It has a tendency to have a negative effect on your interaction with reality. Like when you get in there and you're doing your magic from day to day, and things start to coalesce, the coagulation is taking form. The paucism part of the theory of thirds. So there's Volantia, decreeism, and paucism. So when you're engaged in paucism, a quiet, receptive nature is to be assumed, and then the things come to you. You know, you've already polished Aladdin's lamp, and the spirits are rising, and the heavens open up, and you could see the face of God, and that's a quiet time. That's a sacred time. That's not when you need to be grabbing your cameras and running around filming things and acting like an idiot. I'm very afraid the knowing would laugh, and thus I do not do it. So the essential equation, three. There's four basic guidelines when doing your magic. It's to know, to dare, and to be silent, right? And so being silent, that part of it, it can be it can be sometimes challenging. Guys, I have run out of time for today. We're at the top of the hour. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check me out on www.buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday. Thanks for coming along with the journey. Good to see you, Russian lad. Good to see you, Simon. Good to see. Looks like YouTube is disconnecting me. We have lost connection. I'm not sure if this sign off is being heard or not, but do your adorations. Hail unto thee who art Ra and thy rising. Do your prayers, right? Holy art thou, Lord of the universe, creator of heaven and earth, maker of all things visible and invisible, master of the light and of the darkness. We adore thee and we invoke thee. Send one of your spiritual agents to protect and guide us through the innumerable snares of the earthly sphere, and a cleansing wind to disperse all negativity and endless human opinion. We ask all these things in the name of the divine, supernal triad, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Blessed Mother, and wife. So it is commanded and confirmed. So mote it be. Until next time, as above, so below, as we wander into the abodes of the future, keep doing good magic. Bye for now, guys.